Good evening. Is my screen visible?
Yeah, it is.
Good evening, everyone. Today, we will be talking about the status of women leadership in New Zealand. First, I will introduce my team. My team members are Adya Gupta, Ishita Mittal, Khushi Srivastav, Kinshuk Srivastav, Zuhairullah Khan. New Zealand was the first country in the world where women won the rights to vote and is a leader for gender parity in politics. From the 1980s, women began to achieve a much more significant presence in national politics and in other important political areas. Few incredible women in New Zealand showing leadership under politics are discussed here. Jacinda Ardern. She led the most diverse government in New Zealand. Today, there are more women, people of color, LGBTQ community, and indigenous MPs than ever before. A major contributor to Jacinda's re-election victory in 2020 was the government's successful response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the only country in the world to announce that its goal was to eliminate rather than merely contain the virus. In 2019, during her first term as Prime Minister, the government introduced new technology in the announced budget called the Wellbeing Budget. It is the first country in the world to prioritize citizens' well-being in its budgeting. Georgia Bears. Bear became the mayor in 2000 and in 1995. She became the member of parliament in 1999, making her the first transgender member of parliament and mayor. She acknowledged her status as world leader. She wanted New Zealand to continue to lead the way, particularly in social policy and human rights, including LGBT rights, which were a strong focus for her during her 8 years in Parliament. In a lifetime, she worked as councillor, screen actress, and community leader. She has since retired from politics but continues to be a supporter of gender activism. Helen Clark. In 1999, Helen Clark became the first elected member prime minister. She was also the first Labour leader in history of New Zealand to win 3 consecutive elections. After that, Clark focused her attention to international matters, became the leader of United Nations Development Programme from 2009 to 2017. Maraman Davidson. Marama Davidson, a New Zealand politician who entered the New Zealand Parliament in 2015 as representative of Green Party, of which she is a female co-leader. She worked for the Human Rights Commission. She is an environmentalist and human rights advocate. Davidson has called for liberation of abortion law, in addition to better sex education, improved access to contraceptions, and more support for abortion. Jenny Shepley. Dame Jennifer Mary Shepley was the first female Prime Minister of New Zealand after replacing Jim Bolger as the leader of National Party and the first woman to have led the National Party. She attempted to reform the public health services. She left the Women's Affairs portfolio and took on several others, including responsibility for state-owned entrepreneurs and transports. The involvement of such great numbers of women and the LGBTQ community is a remarkable fact about the country. India, who has just given rights to the LGBTQ community, should also think about giving respectable places in the government to those people, just like done in New Zealand. Now I request Zohaib to continue the presentation.
Thank you, Khushi. Uh, So my topic was women leadership in New Zealand. The first one was Nancy Wake. She was born on 13 August 1912 and died on 7 August 2011. She was the leader of the army. Nancy Wake was also known as uh, the most decorated Allied servicewoman in World War II, as she is referred to White Mouse. She was also on the Gapsto most wanted list. In fact, the ability to outwit her advisory served as the inspiration for her secret name. Wake was born in Wellington, was living the high life in Marseilles at the start of the war while married to a rich Frenchman. She later turned into a member of resistance, a saboteur, and a commander of 7,000 soldiers in guerrilla struggle against the Nazis. Next is Kate Edger. She was born in she was born on 6 January 1857 and died on 6 May 1935. She was the first woman in New Zealand to gain university qualification. Kate, Kate was the first woman in both New Zealand and the British Empire to acquire a university degree, the BA. She earned a BA in Latin and mathematics for the University of Auckland in 1877 at the age of 26. She was chosen to serve as a school's first headmistress before she secured approval for a Kate to attend a famous boys' school in Auckland. Reverend Samuel Edger educated Edger and her three sisters during these years of education. Edger was able to continue her tertiary education after successful requesting permission to apply for a university scholarship without disclosing her gender. Next, I will talk about Kate Shepherd. She was born on 10th March 1847 and died on 13th July 1934. The editor of first New Zealand newspaper, Kate Shepherd, on September 2018 will mark the the 125th anniversary of women's suffrage in New Zealand will occur in September 2018. The campaign's leading force, Kate Shepherd, traveled the entire nation to advance the notion that women ought to have a role in local elections. Shepherd presented the government with the longest petition it had ever seen, measuring 270 meters, that is 886 feet, signed with 32,000 women who supported the cause, the fierce resistance of the parliament member. Following the passage of the Electoral Act 1893, other suffrage movements followed in Shepherd's and in New Zealand's footsteps. Later, Shepherd was chosen as the Honorable Vice President of International Council of Women and went on to become the editor of the first female produced newspaper in New Zealand. Lastly, Dame Marinal Dell, the first president of International Council of Women of New Zealand. For the majority of her life, Dame Marin has advocated for women's rights, both in New Zealand and internationally. She was founding a member of National Council of Women (NCW) chapter in the Hot Valley, which helped her to win the election to serve as the NCW's national president from 1970 to 1974. Dell served as the International Council of Women's president from 1979 to 1986, making her the first New Zealanders to hold the position. She also organized the 1988 International Women Council of Women Continental Celebration in Washington D.C. and served as a New Zealand's government's representative in all the UN conferences on gender equality held in 1970 and managed the International Council of Women's Third World Development Program until 1991. She was inducted into the Order of New Zealand, the nation's highest civil honor, in 1993. As a result, she continued to promote and work to protect women's rights. And lastly, I would like to conclude as from my side, as India should learn from New Zealand, as they have given recognition to women, and women are also fighting. So we do not need to suppress them, but we should ask, we should encourage the women to actively part in it. And now I would like to call Kinshuk, Kinshuk
Thank you.
Shrivastav.
Next slide. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm gonna speak upon women leadership in medical field in New Zealand. Mary Reston Barkas. She was the first female house physician in London, United Kingdom. Barkas was one of the four full-time psychiatrists employed at the newly opened Maudsley Hospital, and she worked there until 1927. Her work focused upon the organic psychiatrist, and she described the hospital as shelter and refuge which offered complete protection and satisfaction of all needs. Next one is Alice Horsley. Alice Horsley was the first woman medical graduate to practice in Auckland and the first woman private practitioner. She was the first woman employed at the Auckland Hospital, where she held a position as bacteriologist and pathologist. Next one is Marian Aroha Ratcliffe Taylor was first woman orthopedic surgeon. In 1926, she was in general practice in Dunedin before commencing an orthopedic surgery practice in 1927 and 1928. And the lastly is Pauline Catherine Simcock. She was the first New Zealand woman to gain a diploma in bacteriology, and Pauline successfully completed her 2 years as a house surgeon and soon traveled to England. Now I would like to invite my friend Adya.
Thank you, Kinshuk. Good evening, everyone. These women ambassadors shown in the slide represent their country, New Zealand, at a global level by being a part of large organization and embassy. First is Amanda Ellis, New Zealand's head of mission and permanent representative to the United Nations in Geneva. Amanda Ellis served as New Zealand's head of mission and permanent representative to the United Nations in Geneva, where she co-chaired the high-level group on humanitarian access into Syria while New Zealand served on the UN Security Council. She was also a lead specialist in the poverty reduction and economic management group of the World Bank and was the recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award for services to women economic empowerment. Secondly, Claire Fernley, who is the ambassador at New Zealand Embassy. Claire Fernley took up the New Zealand ambassador to China role, cross-accredited to Mongolia. While working in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade in Wellington, Claire was recently Director General for North Asia and before that was Director General for Asia Pacific Regional Work. She has served as principal legal advisor and as head of the trade law unit, where she led international law litigation, including cases in the WTO. Coming to Anna Campbell, who is the first female ambassador of White Ribbon and global CEO of FAB Group. Anna Campbell, global CEO of FAB Group, joined White Ribbon as the first female ambassador. During her life at the group, the warehouse became the first New Zealand employer to gain White Ribbon accreditation. Anna believed family violence has severe and devastating effects in New Zealand. Next, Louisa Wall, who is the Pacific Gender Equality Ambassador of New Zealand. New Zealand has an important part to play in supporting gender equality and the advancement of women and girls in the Pacific, and her role is central to that. Louisa is a strong advocate for girls and women's rights and is passionate about human rights and equality. Her extensive experience in community engagement, sports diplomacy, LGBTQI+ rights, and women's participation makes her uniquely suited as an ambassador for regional engagement on these issues. Lastly, Tessa Tamata, who is New Zealand career diplomat and High Commissioner to the Cook Islands. Tessa Tamata was a New Zealand career diplomat and the first female lawyer who served as High Commissioner to the Cook Islands. Tamata joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade in 1992. She served in the Foreign Ministry for more than 25 years. Before becoming High Commissioner, Tamata served concurrently as New Zealand's lead negotiator for the PACER Plus Free Trade Agreement, which would include Australia, New Zealand, and other members of the Pacific Island Forum. So coming to what can India learn from New Zealand? Last year, everyone was talking about how women were rated as better leaders by those who worked with them when compared with men. New Zealand handled the situation of the global pandemic very well under the guidance of the Honorable Prime Minister. Similarly, India should learn from this and give more opportunities to women so that they can become better leaders in the near future. Once they can be given that chance, they will definitely succeed in India too. India is definitely learning from other countries, and we will gradually be able to see that change in India too. Now, I would like to call my co speaker Ishika. Thank you.
Thank you, Adya. Continuing, I would like to speak about the topic Women in Field of Sports. As we can observe, New Zealand has advanced a lot in this field in last century. The women of the country has a remarkable and important role in it. First, Zoe Sandowski Senat. Born 6 March 2001, she is a New Zealand snowboarder. She has recently won gold medal in Olympics women's slopestyle and silver in big air at 22 Winter Olympics, becoming New Zealand's first gold medalist at Winter Olympics. At age of 16, 353 days, she briefly gave New Zealand the title of having youngest Olympic medalist. She has in all won 7 gold medals, 5 silver and 2 bronze in various disciplines of snowboarding in Winter Olympics, World Championships, and Winter X Games. Moving on to Lisa Carrington. Lisa Carrington is a flat water canoeist and the most successful Olympian, winning various gold medals and 1 bronze medal. She also represented New Zealand at World Championship and has won 10 gold, 5 silver, and 2 bronze, in all having 23 titles. Partnering with Tenniel Halton and later joined by Rachel Dodwell and Erin Taylor, she became the first New Zealanders ever to reach the World Championship A final at ICF Canoe Sprint World Championship held in Poland. On Feb 11, 2021, she was named the most influential Meroe sports personality. Hewitt Williams, we all have heard by Hewitt Williams. She was the first female athlete for her country to win Olympic gold medal. She achieved the goal in the category of women's long jump and made the world record. Williams was named as the athlete of the century. She also joined the Otage Athletic Club in early 1947 and challenged social norms which were quite rigid in her times. She came to the national attention when she won New Zealand Athletic Championship. She later on went to win 21 national titles in at least 5 disciplines of athletics and became one of the most female successful athletes. One thing that India can learn from New Zealand in the field of sports, especially, is about sports scholarships. There are very less sports scholarship opportunities in India for people who want to work in this field of professional sports. They need to know about the discipline more than the courses the country is offering currently now. In this field, the New Zealand has been a great achievement. Thank you. That will be all from our team. We thank you all for the opportunity. Thank you.
Now I request team D, of course, the last team to come in. Team D.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Priyanshi.
Sir, is my screen visible?
Yeah, of course.
Good evening, everyone. I, Priyanshi Sethi, is the group lead of Group 4. And as we know, a team is a group of people with complementary skills who work together to achieve a specific goal. And for achieving this goal of presenting the presentation, I have my supporting members, Alok, Khushi, Aryan, and Abhinav. So let's have a quick introduction about the topic. So, what is women leadership or women leaders? Women leaders are more transformational than men leaders. They function as a role model for their subordinates. They inspire their team and spend a lot of time coaching their team. They care a lot about personal development. Women leaders emphasize teamwork and authentic communication as a key to success. And as our topic is status of women leadership in Singapore. So Singapore is a sovereign island country and a city-state in maritime. It is the most, it provides one of the world's most business-friendly regulatory environment for local entrepreneurs. And it is famous for a global financial center, being the most densely populated places in the world, having a world-class city with airport, with a waterfall and a botanic garden that is World Heritage style. So now I would like Alok to explain our presentation further.
Thank you, Priyanshi. A very good evening to all of you. My name is Alok, and I will be talking about the government policies and schemes which were implemented by the government of Singapore in their country. So there are certain areas which I have picked, and I will be talking about those areas and how they turn out to be very beneficial for the Singapore, and what kind of scheme they actually implemented in order to give the benefit to the women. So the first area is the first area which I would be going to cover is equal opportunities in the workplace. So the government of Singapore came with new laws. That any woman who is having any concern regarding her work, if she's having any complaint, then she's having a right to address that particular complaint to a competent authority, and the woman who will be disclosing her women who will be making a complaint to the competent authorities, her identity would not be disclosed. So these kind of schemes and policies, it ensure the prevention of retaliation. And the second point which I would like to say, that they also are coming with the new tripartite guidelines on flexible framework. Priyanshi, please. Yeah. So they are also coming with a new tripartite guidelines on flexible framework arrangement by 2021 to require employers to consider employees' flexi work requests fairly and properly. And apart from that, they also started with the career mentorship, networking opportunities, and training programs for women at work and re-entering the workforce. Priyanshi, please move ahead. And the second area which I have picked is a recognition and support for caregivers. So the home caregiving grant will be increased from $200 of $200 a month up to $400 a month. So whenever government is implementing a policy, they need to give certain kind of incentive. So whenever if a government of Singapore, they wanted to encourage the home caregiving grant, home caregiving people, that is why they have increased the income from $200 to $400, and that is why this particular policy will be going to succeed in its future. And they've also made access, they also have made policies which give easy access and the affordability and quality of preschools. And so the child and the maternal health well-being strategy will be developed. So these kind of policies they are implementing, that is why their country is developing day by day. And more support for the caregivers, a person with disabilities and children with developing. So basically the people who are caregivers, who are looking after disabled person and children, so to them more encouragement is given, the more support is given, so they can also work in a very efficient manner. Khushi, please, Priyanshi, please move ahead. And the third is a very important point, is a very important area which I have picked, the protection against violence and harm. So basically, the greater protection of victims, so basically greater protection of women are given by the government of Singapore who are victims of sexual offences. And recently, the Attorney General's chamber will be making an objection regarding rehabilitative sentence of the adult offenders who commit sexual and hurt offences. So basically, they want that the people should be the offender who are committing sexual offenses shall be punished with more rigorous imprisonment instead of rehabilitative sentence. And basically more awareness is being made in Singapore regarding the online harms. So many times, basically, many women are the victim of online harm. That is why they are continuously making more and more. They are trying to spread more and more awareness regarding it, and they are also giving protection to the victim survivor of the family violence, including a helpline. They also have made a helpline with expanded capacity and multiple boards of reporting by a mobile app. And new national framework, they are also looking forward with a new national framework to promote the safe sport. And they are also creating awareness. They are also giving protection to the women against the sexual offenses in the workplace. So basically, many times what is happening in our country that many women are getting victim of the sexual harassment. So that kind of policy we also we have to implement in our country also. So that's a learning which we can have from the government of Singapore. Pianshi, please go ahead. And the last but not the least, the other area which I have picked is the other support measure for the women. So basically, they are enhancing support for the single parents, and they are also giving support to the divorcing or divorced women. And they are also made an option that divorce can be made by mutual agreement in which the marriage will be irrevocable and they cannot be. So the couples who have entered in an agreement of divorce, then they cannot get remarried. So these kind of policy is also made by the government of Singapore. These kind of options is available in Singapore, and they have also come with a new policy, elective egg freezing. So elective egg freezing will be allowed in 2023 for the women who are between the age of 21 35 years of age. So elective egg freezing is a concept which says that it's a kind of treatment by which women are delaying their pregnancy. So these kind of policy government of Singapore is going to implement in the future, and that will be very beneficial with respect to status of women. And more support are given to the low income families with children, such as child minding service or the usual childcare center operating hours. So with this, I would like to conclude my speech. And for after looking at these areas, there is a very good opportunity for India to learn. Thank you. Now I will request my team member to go ahead with the presentation.
Thank you, Alok. So, and our next topic is initiatives which are taken by the Singapore government for women leadership. In each and every country, government is as important for women development because they only spread the message for women leadership, women development, or women education. So, Singapore is committed to gender equality and the empowerment of women. As such, we believe in an equal opportunity policy for both sexes. There are no barrier or obstacles to women's participation in all sectors of society. Meritocracy is encouraged as the guiding principle of Singapore society, and Singapore's physical limitation have impressed upon us the importance of maximizing the potential of every individual, male or female. We cannot afford to discriminate against any gender. Through gender equality, women in Singapore can participate and contribute fully and equally to the socio-economic development of the country. And let me also share some aspects of the Singapore overall approach to advancing the status of women. On the day of International Women's Day on 8 March 2011, focused on equal access to education, training, and science and technology, something that Singapore firmly believes in. With people as their only natural resource, it follows that investing in human resource development is their priority. And we also came to know by our research that on every Women's Day, Singapore tried to spread the message of women education, women leadership, or women being independent in their life by working on their own. So that by the help of advertisements or by holding campaigns in the whole country, and they also provided on their public transport gifts, or the respective companies also provide gifts by celebrating this honorable occasion. They also try to spread the message by giving employment and training services, maternity leave to the women, giving baby bonuses where they provided help to the families by giving a small amount of money for raising their child. And women are also provided with childcare leave, where working women are given some days of leave where they can actually help their children, help their children in education, or where they can help in children projects as well. Women are also provided with skills, and their skill future programs are also there where they initiate by upgrading girls' skills. And as the saying goes, a woman is like a tea bag, and you never know how strong she is until she gets in the hot water. So now I would like Kushi to explain further about the negative and positive points on Singapore.
Thank you, Priyanshi. I would like to carry forward our research, which is done by the team on two topics mainly, that is sports and education. So I would first talk about sports. Priyanshi, please move on. There are 64 national sports association in Singapore, sanctioned representatives from each sport who led and developed their respective sports. This table shows the percentage of women in the board of each NSA, which indicates a female president among the board members. In this list of 20, only 7 sports have more women representation on the committees compared to the IOC's 26.67%. Some sports like gymnastics and netball were historically more female, hence the higher representation is not surprising. Softball as well is a sport predominant played by women, and hence a strong female representation is there. The only martial art that has strong female representation in Singapore is Silat Federation. Silat, the traditional Southeast Asian sport from Indonesia and Malaysia, which has added in UNESCO for its cultural heritage, and it focuses on developing values and character, and it focuses mainly on 4 important aspects of spiritual, self-defense, art, and sport. It also gives equal opportunities for women in the sport, regardless of their gender and the attitude of the sport. Sports that had no female representation include taekwondo, shooting, cycling, and rugby. All of the 4 sports have women events with national female shooters like Jasmine Ser and Martina Lindsay as current national stars who have brought in numerous medals for Singapore from international events. In these sports, Singapore Rugby Union has no female representation currently on the committee, although Wang Xiao Ying is the first female Singaporean to be appointed as the World Rugby Advisory Committee 2016. Bowling and hockey, however, have good representation because they have strong female leading in bowling and hockey. Entrepreneur, sports administrator, and SNOC Vice President Jessie Phua has led Team Singapore as chef de mission to several major games. The president of Singapore Bowling System 2002, she made history by becoming the first Singaporean to be elected to the highest office in an international sports federation, and she has been a president of that for 4 years. Annabel Penne is a retired hockey player and lawyer, serving as the former president of Singapore Hockey Federation in 2004 to 2012. She paved the way for women in sports leadership in Singapore by becoming the first woman in SNOC committee in 1999, the first female vice president of SNOC in 2002, the first female chef de mission at the Commonwealth Games in 2002 and Olympic Games in 2004, and she has also been the first female president of Singapore Hockey Federation. She also attended the first IOC World Conference on Women in Sports in Switzerland in 1996, and she was accompanied by Teo Shiam Chin and Michael Chan, Deputy Director of Sports for all the SSC. She returned to Singapore to form and share the Women and Sport Working Group. She played a key role in garnering support to form the Asian Women in Sport Group that led to Singapore hosting of the annual meeting of the International Working Group on Women and Sports in 2005. In recognition of many achievements to champion efforts for women in sports in Singapore and Asia, she was awarded the IOC Women in Sports Trophy Asia in 2005. These are just a few names, but I would like to add more names like Ho Chiang, Halima Yacob, Grace Fu, Claire Xiang, Susan Chong, and many more who have inspired all the female ladies in Singapore. And everyone can also visit the National Olympic Council Women Committee, where the leadership status is defined more clearly. The only problem is that in sports, the Singapore is not focusing on male dominant sports because women are not still getting uh, forced to play those, they are not getting encouraged to play male dominant sports. So that is the only reason that they don't do well in that sports. Priyanshi, please move on to the next slide. So this is the sports graph. As you can see that it is continuously, it has increased in 2011 and then it has dropped in 2013 and then it has again increased in 2014. And if you see the current status, in 2019, it has decreased very badly. And in 2020, it is trying to again rise its standard up. Please move on to the next slide. So these are some women who have played a very important role in inspiring other women in education sector. So education in Singapore is managed by the Ministry of Education, which controls the development and administration of state schools receiving government funding, but also has an advisory and supervisory role in respect of private schools. For both private and state schools, there are variations in the extent of autonomy in this curriculum, scope of government aid and funding, tuition burden on the students, and admission policy. Education spending usually makes up about 20% of the annual national budget, which subsides state education and government-assisted private education for Singaporean citizens and funds for EduSave program, the costs for which are significantly higher for non-citizens. In 2000, the Compulsory Education Act codified compulsory education for children of primary school age and made it a criminal offense for parents to fail to enroll their children in school and ensure their regular attendance. Exemptions are allowed for homeschooling or full-time religious institutions, but parents must apply for exemption from the Ministry of Education and meet a minimum benchmark. The main language of instruction in Singapore is English, which was officially designated the first language within the local education system in 1987. English is the language of instruction for nearly all subjects except the official mother tongue and the literatures of those languages. These are generally not taught in English, although there is a provision for the use of English at the initial stage. Certain schools, such as secondary schools under the special assistance plan, encourages a richer use of the mother tongue and may occasionally teach subjects in Mandarin Chinese. Singapore's education system has been described as world's leading and in 2010 was among those picked out for commendation by the new British education minister at that time, which was Michael Gove. Singapore's education system has been consistently ranked as one of the highest in the world by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It is believed that this comes from the style of teaching that is implanted in Singapore. By doing this, teachers in Singapore teach a much more narrow but deep type of instruction. According to that program, the International Student Assessment, PISA Singapore, has the highest performance in international education and tops in global ranking. In 2020, Singaporean students made up to the perfect score in the IBO examinations worldwide. There is no doubt that Singapore's education system is one of the best in the world and that it produces some of the smartest and most of the students year after year. However, it didn't just get this good on its own. It was the work of many educators, policy readers, and donors that have over the years shaped their education system and ensure that everyone is given a chance to succeed. First woman I would like to talk about is Dr. Tan Kiang Lian, who is the daughter of late banker and philanthropist Tan Sri. The man behind one of Singapore's largest bank, OCBC, is a force to be held. As chairman of the family's Tan Shin Tuan Foundation, Dr. Tan oversees non-profit organization efforts in providing assistance to less fortunate and channeling funds for the good of society. Under her watch, the Tan Shin Tuan Foundation, which oversees, has donated $10 million to education, the art community programs. Since its inception in 1976, Dr. Tan is also a private practice eye surgeon who completed her medical studies at the Royal College of Physicians in London, the Royal College of Surgeons of England, and Academy of Medicine in Singapore. The second woman I would like to talk about is Cheryl Lee, who is very passionate and gritty. With the successful career in private banking behind her, she has really established Unusual Adventures in November 2020. Unusual Adventures is an online to offline ecosystem in the fields of education technology, education, and healthcare that offers digital solutions for next generation committees as well as an innovation lab. Lee is also the co founder and director of a new US and Singapore startup that empowers women in the areas of female technology and healthcare, as well as O20 platform of related tailored services that has been curated to address the holistic needs of today's women in the international community. She also sits in the Philanthropy Advisory Council for KK Women's and Children's Hospital and has chaired the Kids Horizon Appeal Annual Fund in aid of the KKH Health Fund in the past. Lastly, I'm going to talk about Lily Kong. She is a social, cultural, and open geographer and is regarded as a thought leader in the study of urban transformation and social and cultural change in India. She has been the president of Singapore Management University and she has published many books. She has written and co written 10 books, and also she has contributed over 60 chapters. Kong also heads a panel at SMU that makes recommendations on revision to the undergraduate curriculum to structure and advocated new disciplinary measures and tracks, including politics, law and economics, and healthcare. The Academy offers skills upgrading courses for working for the women, and she has also done a lot of she has also won the Robert Stotford Award for the Association of American Geographers for contributors to the study of religion. Now I would like to call Aryan.
Hello everyone. My topic is positive and negative points on India. So, can you please think, based on education, the United Nations have perceived the right to schooling as an essential basic freedom. In and in many nations, training is obligatory up to a particular age. In India, training is essentially gives instruction in India by non-public schools, which run autonomously of the public authority, and state-funded schools controlled and supported by the public authority at the three levels: local, state, and neighborhood. Under the Indian Constitution, schooling is a basic right to kids matured 6 to 14. In any case, there is no regulation set up in the that makes training obligatory. India has an education pace of 74.04%, and as per the World Bank, Indian schools face difficulties in essential environment, nature of educators, and application-based learning. India has a younger work pace of 3.9%, but there is no regulation set up that makes instruction mandatory. Can you please move to the next slide? Now, talking about teachers, according to the Indian NGO Child's Right and You, uh, the checks and surveys by the government to monitor the quality of education are very irregular, and teachers rarely face any consequences. India has no unique necessities for turning into administration teacher separated from having an advanced education. The typical educator to understudy proportion in Indian government schools is 1 is to 40, which is fundamentally higher than the suggested proportion recommended by the UN. As per the UN, the greatest instructor to study the proportion ought to be around 1 is to 30 to offer every kid the consideration and the consideration as indicated by the Indian NGO. The child's right and you the checks and reviews by the public authority to screen the nature and schooling are extremely unpredictable and instructors seldom face any results. Can you move on to the next slide? No, to the next based on sports. A particular now talking about sports, a particular emphasis has been placed in the current government's policy documents on the idea that India always had a strong culture towards sports. In in a book written by Joy Bhattacharya, in a book written by Acharya, he traces the history of sports in India from the very beginning, the ancient and medieval periods to contemporary times. And in a book written by uh, uh, Ronjoy Sen, Ronjoy Sen, in the context of sports, he notes that India's culture and caste traditions have played a role historically. Since social satisfaction means different castes tended not to play together. There have been mentions of sports in some rudimentary form of fitness activity or entertainment thoughts throughout the ages. Caste barriers had a huge role to play in access to sports. For Kshatriyas or the warrior royal class, sports serve as a necessity and a pastime. India's progress in international sports competitions such as Olympics and Asian Games. Fast forward to the modern Olympic Games in Athens in 1986, pioneered by Baron Pierre de Coubertin, Coubertin, they perhaps intended the first multilateral sporting competition. No one from India participated in the inaugural edition. Normal Pichard, a Calcutta-born Britisher, was the only Indian to participate in the 1900s Olympics in Paris. He was at the first Asian-born athlete to win an Olympic medal. There is, however, a debate on whether Pichard competed as an Indian or as a British.
Request team D to actually end up for the conclusion. Go to the conclusion.
I request Ranchi to go to the conclusion part, please.
And that brings us to the end of our presentation. I would like to thank you for your time and attention today.
Thank you. Thank you to all team. Please, yeah. Now I request our external evaluator to actually speak about the presentations, how it was actually for all the teams, team A, B, C, D. What was her, of course, comments and the views we would like to hear. Siman, you can speak on regarding the all the presentations, that is team A, B, C, D.
Yes, yes. So first of all, I would like to thank everyone, all the presenters, and especially Pradeep sir, to give me the opportunity. The coming to the all the topics and how they are presented and all, like all of the presenters are doing well according to their topic. But the thing is, their progress and they're comparing the Indians what they have to do or what they should explain little bit more. Overall, it's good. Everything is good. And for the second one and the third one, they are doing well. Well, why I'm telling, they are putting their positives and negative comments also there. Then the first one is like they should include something like that also. It should be little explainable. And overall, it's good. For me also, it's a very new experience to learn the lots of things like the place like New Zealand, Singapore, like this. So, okay, overall, I would like to thank everyone. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Now, let me give you some insights how the teams were doing actually. See, if we are into the presentation, irrespective of uh, who is doing what, who is the team leader, firstly, you need to prepare yourself. And that is how or where team A was lagging. They didn't prepare that who will be actually presenting it, who is the team leader, or how I can do it so that it can go smoothly. There can be ways and there can be mediums or the modes which you can do actually. You might be sharing it to the team leader of the group, or team leader of the, of course, internship. You can very well say share it to them. You need to prepare yourself first. You cannot say, or you cannot come up with an excuses that we don't know, of course, and we don't have such presenters here or presentation here, uh, because time period is very much limited. If I come to the time period, because team A was having very less data or levies, very less presentation, they did this thing in within a time frame of 12 minutes. Rest of all others, if I see team B has of course used 1 or 2 more minutes. Likewise, team C, they have of course used 3 plus 4 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes more, and team D, they have actually exceeded all the limits. But see, once your presentation is there, whatever the time period is being given to you, that is 12 minutes being given to you, you need to present it as per that. Uh, and now coming to the criteria, what were the criteria, or what exactly you need to actually present? Somehow I can say that you were focusing more towards the person or the personalities. I was going through all the presentations. You were focused more on to the personalities. However, Team B and Team D did some of the good understanding. They actually have come up with the understanding what exactly, if I am saying that status quo of women in leadership. So they have presented actually what the government or what that particular country is doing, and they have initiated that particular thing in that, and they have come up. They have built up the story as per that. That's what the country is. What is the status of that country? What is the percentile, of course, increment into that particular status for women leadership? And then they have actually come up for the personalities in the sports, in the politics, in the other domains, of course. That is one good way. Uh, but our topic was on the status quo of the woman. The way team D has initiated, or the way team B has initiated, was actually my point of view to go through it. You guys have focused more towards the personalities. What you can do is, or what you can alter over there is, go through the number of sports, or go to the number of types of the domains or achievements that country is having, and then only say the name of those personalities, those who are working actually. But of course, team B and team D, they did some of the homework, but team D, I was more and more focused towards that you will be restricted towards that 12 minutes of time. And because you were not restricted to those 12 minutes of time, you know how much time you did actually. Your presentation was somewhere around 25 to 26 minutes. So it is doubling to your presentation time actually. The log period is being given to that is, if you are into university, or if you are there for any of the PhD program, and if the time is given 6 minutes, or if I'm asking any entrepreneur pitch, you will be given only 3 minutes of time period. 3 minutes of time period, you need to say each and everything. Here, what you are doing is, you are over consuming the time period of others, and whatever you have presented up to the 12 minutes of this, or say, it was good actually, and that was only the requirement of today's topic. Need not to go through the personalities. We were not focused about the personalities. We were more focused about the how the country is actually developing, or what the country is doing in regard to the status of the women leadership. That was the theme actually. So good to see how you guys are preparing and what you guys are actually learning on for this internship program. thank you to our external evaluator, Simaji, for actually supporting
Thank you
us,
so much,
hearing
sir.
us, and giving your time and precious time, of course. Uh, that too on the weekends. Request team leader to actually share a letter of gratitude for Simaji. And if you guys have any queries, please let us know.
Sir, would you please give me the personal feedback?
That I will give it to all of you. Okay, we will be sharing it to you. Okay,
Okay, definitely. Thank you, sir.
that I will be discussing on offline too. Okay, how you guys actually did it.
Okay, sir.
Uh, team leader Khushi,
Yes,
please
sir.
present the letter of gratitude to madam.
Yes, sir. On behalf of all the students and sir, I would like to thank ma'am for taking out her precious time and for joining us in the presentation. Thank you so much, ma'am.
I request
Thank you
Khushi
so
to
much.
share the letter of gratitude so that
Yes, sir.
we can go and conclude the session. Thank you, Simaji, for supporting us. Of course,
Thank you, sir.
this complete internship is up for 60 days, and these students are from UPS Dehradun. They are learning about under the Srijan Social Internship program. This is actually, and there are some 26 students, those who are actually learning in my center. And last year also we did the same,
Yes, sir.
and we did it on the public policy, and again we are doing it for the public policy. And this is the assignment 3 where we are supposed to actually learn on how our students are getting, or what actually their idea about once they go and learn about other countries as per se for women development, and the uh, leadership role for the women given to given in those countries, or beyond the
Yes,
territories, how
sir.
the countries are working. And of course, uh, why? Because these people or these students are saying about what India can actually include. I have said to them
Yes,
that
yes.
at least say 2 to 3 lines on that, but they have presented each and everything about the India. So I was
Yes,
looking out at how we can actually inherent those culture or that particular practice or those exercises in India also. That was my concern,
yes,
not that the complete details is required. Okay,
yes, yes,
thank you for
definitely.
being with us, supporting us,
Thank you, sir. Thank
students.
you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Kusi, you can close the Kusi, you can close it here. Thanks to all. Thanks for supporting and thanks for your presentation. And we will be discussing separately for each of the team when we are actually meeting offline. Thank you.
Thank you, Master. Thank you, ma'am, for giving your precious time.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Sir,
sir.
thank you, ma'am.